Welcome, comrades, to Truth Talks Today, the people's perspective on the world and your number one news source for the truth. The date is October 16th, 1962, and we've got quite the story for you. I open every broadcast addressing you as my comrades. This is what our glorious nation is based upon: unity, equality, and the togetherness that makes us all stronger. Of course, we have only just begun to cover the brilliance of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, but today I'd like to reach out and lift up the voices of two of our strongest allies, loyal to the cause, loyal to the people, loyal to the glorious USSR. Our squad is rocking and rolling, and the world is listening. Today in the United Nations Security Council, a representative pointed out that it wasn't just Cuba who reached out to the USSR asking for missiles, as Turkey did the exact same tactic, but with the United States. But Turkey's sovereignty has never been threatened quite like that of Cuba. The U.S. claims to be for the freedom of all nations, but never for those who are communists and actually reflect the values of the common people. The U.S. representative repeatedly encouraged other quieter delegates of the Security Council to make their voices heard, but voted against allowing a Cuban representative to speak at the committee. I may not be a mathematician, but it seems apparent that something isn't quite adding up in the capitalist logic. Who, you might be wondering, brought up these excellent points? Who spoke up for the people and stated that every country has the right to their own ideology, but ideologies must be looked past? Who else could I be talking about but the delegates of Egypt and Romania? Today I had the honor of interviewing these brilliant representatives about some of the most pressing questions, and you may need to put on a tight hat for the remainder of this broadcast because their outstanding responses will blow your mind. Does your nation feel threatened by the U.S. and their allies?
Romania, although it does not feel a direct threat from the U.S., it does feel the threat of escalation in this crisis and possible conflict. And Romania, its main goal right now is just to be aligned with its allies, including the USSR, and really unite in the name of de-escalation.
Egypt also feels threatened by this crisis because this is a potential world-ending crisis. However, Egypt does feel threatened by some of the allies of the United States, the United Kingdom most specifically, because the United Kingdom is a state that has invaded Egypt's sovereignty in the past. In only 5 years ago, with the Suez Canal crisis, the United Kingdom with France and Israel, the three of them intervened in Egyptian soil to violate our own sovereignty. So yes, we are an advocate to fight for the rights of an independent country that is most likely even an underdeveloped country that requires assistance, such like Cuba and like Egypt once was.
Do you think the U.S. will be able to look past this idea of ideologies, and how can they be convinced?
Romania is concerned about the U.S.'s point of view in this conflict, as previously in our council, the U.S. did not even want to hear from the Cuban delegate. The delegation of Romania believes that considering all perspectives in this crisis is exceedingly important, especially Cuba, as we want to make sure that the people of Cuba and Cuba's sovereignty is represented.
The position of the delegate of the United States is pretty disturbing. The delegate is not open for the advocacy of the rights of Cuban people. It is the United States that is always talking of freedom, of independence, of democracy. However, they do not seem to understand that there is a legitimate democracy in Cuba that is not being respected by its own government.
How likely do you think a peaceful resolution might be?
Well, the Egyptian delegation is pretty proud of the opinions of other delegates. A lot of the supporters of the non-aligned movement, such as Ghana and even now Romania, we are all uniting ourselves towards one goal, and that being the resolution of this crisis. If this crisis were not to be solved that way, there would be two resolutions, one proposed by the East Bloc and another by the West Bloc. And the goal of the Egyptian delegation would be to push for a third, a neutral resolution. However, keeping in mind that the United States have violated international law and are categorized by the Egyptian delegation, and I sure hope by other delegations as well, as international criminals, for violating Cuba's sovereignty, and they must make more compromises than the Soviet Union, and they must be punished for their actions.
Yeah, the delegation of Romania echoes that sentiment in that it really ultimately just hopes for peace. Currently in our council, we are having to deal with both the US and USSR cabinets' lack of communication, and Romania really believes that building up avenues of communication between these two cabinets is very important in the solution to this crisis. Delegation of Romania believes that looking to the future is very important in terms of atomic energy and nuclear powers, and that more research and possible non-proliferation agreements must be reached in order for there to be peace.
This has been Sturgeon Morris from Truth Talks Today. Tune in soon to hear the latest People's News.